Find the perfect ride for you today with the New Year New Ride sales event at Guam Autopot. Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Outlander Sport starting at just $22,995 or only $156 per paycheck. Visit GuamAutospot.com or call 671-478-AUTO.
Buy fuel, get Wendy's. Drive to your nearest 76 Circle K and get free Wendy's. Yes, free. Fuel up with $30 and score your choice of a 6-piece crispy chicken nuggets or a juicy junior cheeseburger deluxe. Fresh, hot, and packed with flavor. But hurry, quantities are limited and this delicious deal won't last long. So hit the road to 76 Circle K, fuel up, and get Wendy's free before it's gone.
You or someone you know looking for a job? Well, Sentinel Security is hiring and they're offering starting pay between $10 to $15 an hour, and they'll train you too. Email them today that you're interested at sentinelsolutionsguam@gmail.com. Sentinel Security, Guam's most reliable security solution for your home and your business. Thinking about what to have for breakfast tomorrow morning, any day of the week actually? Kickstart your day with one of Wendy's Guam's breakfast faves, the morning melt panini, the breakfast burrito, or the sausage, egg, and cheese English muffin, together with a whole bunch of other great stuff on their menu. Your mornings just got delicious. Head to Wendy's for breakfast from 6 to 10:30 in the morning on weekdays and from 6 to 11 a.m. on weekends.
Kandit News is brought to you by 76 Circle K Wendy.
Good afternoon, my friends. It is 2:42 p.m. on Sunday, August 17, 2025. This is the first day of my week, and I hope you all had a great Sunday so far. I hope you've all gone to church. If you haven't gone to church, there's still church tonight. So, don't you worry about it. Make your commitment, your Sunday obligation to the Lord, and let's get this week started. My name is Troy Torres, and I want to thank you all so much again for joining me on this show. Hi, Jen. Hi, Brennan. Hi, Athena. Good afternoon, Jude. Good afternoon, Irene. Good afternoon, Joe, JD. I love you all. JB, I love you all. And God bless you all for joining this afternoon. Now, over the past few days, or past couple of weeks actually, I've received messages from just a couple of people. It's becoming a little more frequent over the past, day actually. And it's, how come you're not covering ... And it's, a couple of people, they're in the administration. They don't like Godwin Kidigwa. So they're like, how come you're not covering the Godwin Kidigwa? I was like, who's Godwin Kidigwa? Like, is he a cabinet member? Did he do something corrupt? And they're like, no, it's some family violence and assault. Something. I was like, we don't cover that. Like, why am I gonna? We're busy. We're covering the largest political corruption case in the history of the island. We're busy, okay? We're not. That sounds stupid to me. And and then over the past couple of weeks, people are like, "Are you paying attention to session? Are you paying attention to the budget, the whole tax cuts thing?" And my answer is very simple: no, I'm not. I have not watched any session until yesterday. And I am upset at senators right now. All of them. All 15 of them I'm pissed at. Because they took me off. They took my attention away from the Tenorio corruption case so I could watch their stupid session and their misbehaving and all of their stupidity, like all their attention grabbing. They want to make the sound bites. They just want to look and feel important when there's really important things happening in this island and that they should be paying attention to. But no, senators want to do their stupid thing that they've been doing for time immemorial to grab our attention away from what's really important. And all it really is theatrics and stupidity and ego and pride. Ugh. I could have gone the rest of the year not watching that stupid session. Honestly. Because what is it's the budget. Budget's important, sure. But aside from that tax cut, there is nothing else that's important or significant in that budget that warrants attention beyond what we normally give attention to. Because I'll tell you this. Without even reading the budget, without even having spent any time aside from yesterday watching this budget session, I will tell you right now that budget's the same as every single budget that ever has been in the most significant of ways. I will guarantee you right now that the Department of Education is wildly underfunded. I'll guarantee you right now that the priority areas of this island, that there's no funded program that's going to do anything significant about the issue of poverty, about homelessness, to improve disease prevention, to hurry up the recruitment and the training of police officers so that we have more of them, so that there is a deterrence to crime throughout the communities. I will guarantee you there is not enough resources in that budget to do the fixes over at the Department of Corrections so they can finally be in the business of rehabilitation so that when those prisoners come out of prison, we don't have to worry about them recommitting crimes. I'll guarantee you that all of these things, just like all of the budgets before, no matter how hard these senators say they're trying, it's the same. And no matter whether it's Republican or Democrat, the most important things are being wildly underfunded. Now, an argument could be made that why are the Republicans underfunding it more by cutting taxes? And I'll slam right back with, why the hell did the government need more money in the first place all those years ago when it raised the taxes and then didn't do a damn thing to fund priority areas? Why, if our taxes were raised in 2018, what is that, 7 years ago? Why has it taken 7 years and still the Department of Education is wildly underfunded? I'll tell you why. It's because when our government had that increase in taxes and got all that money from the pandemic, from the federal government, so all the GRT that's coming in, the increases in GRT coming in, the pandemic funding that came in, just big gifts to the government of Guam. The government of Guam didn't invest it in the things that mattered. They didn't invest it in some sort of program to reduce the cost of housing, reduce the cost of... Well, I take that back. GPA is probably the only place in this government that has done anything significant for the future of this island, because when Ukudu comes online, our power bills are supposed to drop significantly some short time after that. So GPA at least is doing it right in terms of the long term. But everybody else, we didn't invest in solutions for affordable housing. We didn't invest in the roads beyond the federal highway funds and, trinkets here and there for the tertiary roads and the secondary roads. We didn't invest in a better police force and better resources over the Department of Corrections. We didn't invest in crime deterrence. We sure as heck didn't invest in the Department of Education and in public schools. You know why? Because the government both Democrats and Republicans, when they raised our taxes in 2018, and when they got the federal funds, used that money to raise pay throughout the government of Guam only, with meager 1, maybe 2 pennies on the dollar increases to the minimum wage in that same period of time. And so the private sector has been out there. And so this session, this budget session, it started with this big fight over taxes. And essentially, it's the Democrats versus the Republicans. The Democrats are defending the 5% BPT for the highest grossing companies in this island, doing business in this island. The Republicans have been wanting to provide some form of or all tax relief, as in I'm talking about between the 4% and the 5%. And so the Democrats lost that debate because the Republicans have the majority. And you know why the Republicans have the majority? Because if there was any issue that propelled the change in legislative majority in the last election, it was this issue of taxes. It was this issue of the Democrats refused to commit to what was originally the Republicans who increased taxes in 2018. But there was a commitment to roll back the tax increase. And the Democrats refused to honor that commitment over the past 6 years. And so the people elected the Republicans into office. So the Republicans, they have this mandate. And like their clearest mandate is to cut taxes. Right or wrong, it was their mandate by the voters. It's a very clear mandate that the voters gave. And so there's been all these hurt feelings throughout the session. I don't know why these senators can't just go into work with their suits and their ties and their skirts and whatever and hash it out, argue about it without raising voices. And it's kind of weird that I'm the person saying this. Why can't they just, in a very professional way, one person says their piece, the other person says their piece. There's a back and forth to try and get closer to the truth. And then at a certain point, whoever is in charge of the session or the committee or whatever says, all right, that's enough, everyone. Let's vote. And whoever has the most votes wins. And there's no more crying in baseball. But that's not what we're getting, my dear friends. Apparently, enough to take me away from my laser focus on the Tenorio corruption case and all the contracts that Charissa Tenorio has been getting since her brother Josh Tenorio became the lieutenant governor of Guam. There's a mountain of stuff, research that I have to do that I'm not doing right now because I'm talking about this very stupid thing. And I'm not talking, the tax cuts, that's not a stupid thing. But I figured, 15 senators acting like adults, they can figure it out. And if they cut the taxes or if they don't cut the taxes, whatever. Don't matter to me. I'm not one of those big companies. I mean, probably a good thing if they do cut the taxes, sure. And maybe those senators can just do their jobs. And if they're concerned about how are they going to make ends meet in the government of Guam, do what everybody does and cut expenses, which is going to take, some balls on the part of some of these senators or all of these senators to be able to face the reality that personnel costs would probably need to be cut. And whether that means cutting personnel, cutting whole employees. And by the way, I've been learning that since the last election, since the last gubernatorial election, there are a crap load more unclassified, called special project coordinators, unclassified employees throughout the government of Guam. I'm talking about political appointees. So when the administration, when the governor's office, when BBMR comes out and says, oh, we can't afford this because, we have to be able to pay for this, that, part of what they're telling you is they can't afford it because they have to pay for their politics. They have to pay for those employees that they've hired as paybacks for the election. And the media should probably do a much better job at tracking all of this hiring that's going on. But it's happening. And look at the contracts that we're looking at. Look at the hundreds of thousands of dollars already that we're finding. And there's more that we haven't even revealed yet, that I have in my mound of paperwork from the FOIAs that we did about Charissa Tenorio's companies. Aside from Tenorio's companies, what about all the other contracts? How much money has this administration been wasting and then telling us they can't cut our taxes because they have to pay for all of this stuff? Because I don't buy it. I don't buy that our government has to cost this much. Perhaps 90% as much as it costs, maybe 95% of as much as it costs, but certainly not 100%, because certainly there is waste and there is corruption that needs to be cut. And these senators need to grow a pair so that they can start to cut this stuff rather than the generalized bickering that's going on the session floor, which has taken our focus off of the Tenorio corruption case. Can you see that I'm a bit upset? And I'm upset because I have better things to do, and we all have better things to pay attention to. Okay, so I'm going to play for you a 45-second clip of the thing that's got everyone's panties in a bunch about yesterday. And my panties got in a bunch too when I saw this. I thought that this was not... Something wasn't right about it. I'll tell you that. Now, I didn't vote for Senator Therese Terlahi in the last election. Prior to that, I had always voted for Senator Therese Terlahi. The reason I didn't vote for her in the last election is because I was disappointed with her performance as the speaker, her inability to get people together. There was a whole lot of stuff that did not get done in the last legislature. And so just as a voter, just thinking objectively, I was like, look, I can't vote for you right now. But I do like a lot of the stuff that Therese Terlahi does. I do like a lot of the points that she makes. However, when I saw this, my very first reaction was, well, that was not a nice thing that Senator Chris Duenas did. But my second reaction was, all right, why was Senator Terlahi doing that? And there's a little bit of, here, just watch what this is, if you haven't watched it already.
As we read out the other night, the standing rules on your point of order, Mr. Gumatato, on 1.02C state that we can raise questions to the presiding officer. I believe I had the floor, Mr. Chair, on a point of order.
If we could continue with the business of this body.
I would ask the Speaker to please assist the Chair in ruling these proceedings.
This is the fourth time that you've interrupted order on the floor.
I have the floor on a point of order,
I will have Sergeant
Mr.
Arms
Chair.
remove you from the floor for the duration of this amendment.
If I have the floor,
Sarge,
how can
please
I
remove the member.
be interrupted by somebody else when I'm making a point of order?
Okay, first of all, Eugene Uggan, I love your comment. That's like my favorite comment. He says, I'm frying me some empanadas and watching from Washington State. Hot for day. Buenas, sir. Thank you so much. And I love that you're frying empanada right now and watching Kandit. Thank you so much. And thank you and good afternoon to all of you who have joined this live cast. So you heard Senator Therese Terlahi there. And so what was happening? Wait, first let me explain what you didn't see in that video. What you didn't see was a few seconds prior. And this is significant context to this. I'm not saying that this is an important thing to be discussing, but because so many people are like, did you see what happened in the legislature? I suppose we should be talking about this. But after we talk about this, we're done and we're going back to the Tenorio corruption case, okay? So, but there is significant context to this. Right before that clip, there were a few seconds of this exchange that are not included in that clip that was sent to me, okay? Right before that, Senator Chris Duenas, who is the chairman of the Budget Committee, and for the purposes of this session, they're in the Committee of the Whole of the Finance Committee in order to get through the budget. Most important thing the legislature is supposed to do, right? Okay, so Senator Duenas was trying to move on, and there's even context to that too, which I will explain. He was trying to move on to an amendment by Senator Vince Borja. And it was in a new chapter of the budget. They had just come off from another chapter of the budget that they closed out in the appropriations. They're in this new chapter. It's about Department of Education, okay? And so he's trying to get through to that. Senator Sean Gumatato raises some point of inquiry or something like that. Then Senator Therese Terlahi, she raises a point of order. if you know anything about legislative rules, right? There is a hierarchy to motions and to privileges of speaking. A point of order ranks very high in the hierarchy. So at any time during a session, you don't have to be recognized or anything. You can stand up and you can say, I raise a point of order, Mr. Speaker, or point of order, Mr. Chairman. You assert it. And then the presiding officer is supposed to, according to the rules, recognize you to state your point of order. Same with a point of inquiry or a point of personal infringement. There's three different things. Some of the rookie senators especially will mix up what those three things are sometimes. They'll mix up a point of inquiry and a point of order, or a point of order and a point of personal infringement. Those are the most common mix-ups in the uses of these assertions that happen on the session floor. And so when Therese Sirlahi says point of order, Senator Duenas is supposed to say, Senator Sirlahi, please state your point of order. And then Senator Sirlahi is supposed to very briefly explain what section of the rule she believes has been violated, explain why it has been violated, and ask the presiding officer, which is Senator Duenas, to rule on the point of order, whether she's right or she's wrong, and then they move on. There's no debating. There's not supposed to be a debate on a point of order, a point of inquiry, or a point of personal infringement. The senator on the floor makes the point, states the point, and the presiding officer decides on the point. The presiding officer is almost like a judge in that case. And so what you didn't see in that video was that Senator Sirlahi raised a point of order, and then Senator Gumatautau interrupted her with his own point of order. You cannot and this is, I'm just being completely objective here, okay? You cannot entertain 2 points of order at the same time. You have to dispose of the first point of order, and then you can go to the next one. But Senator Gumatautau wasn't even supposed to interrupt Senator Sirlahi, which was the point Senator Sirlahi was making. She's like, I was making a point of order, and then I was interrupted. So you can see why Senator Sirlahi just kept on talking. But there's even more context to this. It's that doesn't end the context, okay? So now you know what was happening within that 1 minute and the context of that 1 minute. Gumatautau was not supposed to interrupt Sirlahi. Duenas should have asked Sirlahi to state her point of order. She should have finished her point of order, and then Duenas should have made a ruling on that point of order, okay? That's what should have happened. That didn't happen. But it just devolved into, a shouting match and Senator Duenas threatening to kick Senator Sirlahi out of the session hall. And you know what? Can I just say, and I think it's kind of funny that I'm the one saying this. Can I just say, if the two of them could have committed, and I'm talking about Duenas and Sirlahi, if the two of them could have committed just 2 degrees more to being professional, both of them would have understood in the moment, at the time, that they were disagreeing about something. They would have understood that logic would need to that they would both need to yield to logic, and that somebody would need to yield first. And so therefore, they both should have known that cooler heads should prevail. And so Senator Sirlahi didn't need to keep on. And Senator Duenas sure as heck didn't need to threaten to kick her. I mean, he has a right to. It's in the rules, but that's kind of an extreme thing. He should have gavelled out. He should have said, you know what, we're going to take a recess so that Senator Sirlahi, you can just calm down and respect the rules. And Senator Gumatautau, you can't be interrupting people either. You need to respect it. Everyone needs to respect the rules. We're going to take a recess. And in 20 minutes, give everybody 20 minutes to just calm the heck down. chill out and let's be ready to come back to work as professionals, because that's not what's happening right now. Instead, it escalated. But there is further context to this. That was the 4th time that same day that Senator Duenas had entertained a certain type of point of inquiry or order from Senator Shalahi, and Senator Shalahi kept interrupting Senator Duenas. Now, this 4th time, she appeared more calm. She appeared more... She was definitely wronged by Senator Gumatauto interrupting and by Senator Duenas not allowing her to complete her point of order. But there was a first 3 times, and the legislature had to recess 3 times because Senator Shalahi kept speaking above the chairman of the committee, Senator Duenas, and not allowing the session to move forward. And it was all about the same thing each time the recess happened. So what had happened was so the legislature was in, remember I was saying they were in a new chapter? So they were in the previous chapter. And in the previous chapter, Senator Chris Barnett was fighting for an amendment. It was a $10 million appropriation to the Department of Education. That's good. That's great. You know, I love more money going to DOE. You don't even have to tell me about what it's about, because DOE is so sorely underfunded that like you really don't need to explain your thought process to me when you want to give DOE more money. DOE needs more money. Period. Okay? The problem is that the funding source that Senator Barnett wanted to tap only had $4 million in it. So Senator Duenas, the chairman of the committee, he ruled the amendment out of order. And so Senator Barnett didn't have a problem with it. He understood. He was so professional about it. So the legislature moved on, and they closed out that chapter after that amendment failed, or after that amendment was ruled out of order. Then they moved on to the next chapter. Now, according to the rules of the legislature, once you close that chapter and you move on to the next chapter, it's done. You can't go back to it unless you want to overrule the decision of the chair by a vote of, I think it's 2/3 or something like that. It's not easy to go back to the previous chapter. And it's done this way so that the legislature doesn't get stuck. And then all of a sudden it's August 31st and they violated the law about when they can pass the budget, et cetera, et cetera. So they get to the opening of the new chapter, and they're still in the DOE, but it's a new chapter of DOE in the appropriations section of the bill. And Senator Vince Borja has his amendment. And so Senator Barnett, he stands up and he was like, hey, can we go back to and discuss that whole $10 million thing? And Senator Duenas, the chairman of the committee, he rules. He says, no, that's out of order. I'm sorry, we can't go back because, you know, this is what the rules say. And so Senator Terlahi then raises a point of inquiry. And that was the first time she raises the point of inquiry. This repeats 3 times. Senator Duenas, all of these discussions happen. It turns into an argument. Senator Duenas is trying to explain. Senator Terlahi is speaking over him. And so he rules her out of order. And then and he does the professional thing. He recesses out so that everyone can just calm down. So that Senator Shalahi, hopefully, you know, whatever, right? So when they come back, cooler heads prevail. But she does it a second time. And then she did it a 3rd time. And so it was a lot of time wasted. So I can see where Senator Duenas is coming from. I can see why he was frustrated that 4th time. But that 4th time, Senator Shalahi actually was the one who was wronged because she was interrupted by Senator Gumatauta and she wasn't allowed to speak her point of order. All in all, what does this tell us about about everything that happened yesterday? It was completely stupid and a complete waste of all of our time. That's what that tells us. Because rather than concentrating on the topics at hand and on what's important in that budget, whether it's taxes or funding the Department of Education or revenue levels or enough resources to fight the affordable housing crisis or poverty or homelessness, or, you know, the need for crime deterrence or for rehabilitation within the Department of Corrections, or the need for resources to promote assisted living for people with disabilities. Instead of concentrating on that, we are concentrating on the behaviors of senators on the floor who are unable to stop acting like children. You know, the most important thing out of all of this is that it's taken our attention away from the Tenorio corruption case. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. Going back to our regularly scheduled program, the Tenorio corruption case, and hopefully we'll have more news for you this day.
We got that dynamite. We got that dynamite.
Find the perfect ride for you today with the New Year New Ride sales event at Guam Autopot. Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Outlander Sport, starting at just $22,995 or only $156 per paycheck. Visit GuamAutospot.com or call 671-478-AUTO.
Buy fuel, get Wendy's. Drive to your nearest 76 Circle K and get free Wendy's. Yes, free. Fuel up with $30 and score your choice of a 6-piece crispy chicken nuggets or a juicy junior cheeseburger deluxe. Fresh, hot, and packed with flavor. But hurry, quantities are limited and this delicious deal won't last long. So hit the road to 76 Circle K, fuel up, and get Wendy's free before it's gone.